Hello, welcome to Feedback Friday. Sam here has some Marvel Crisis Protocol minis that he saying tabletop plus and wants to push it to a display level. And I forgot to hit record, so we're getting the redo. This the important thing here is that, like, when you want to go from tabletop plus whatever to display, it's about how you approach the mini from the very beginning, right? How you present the mini, your mentality while painting the figure really, I think, changes the quality that it's going to end up overall, right? So I could sit here and critique the painting on this, which I will do, but if you want to approach display level or start doing display figures, you have to paint for display, right? Does that make sense to you guys? The difference, like, it changes your mindset. Anyways, let's look here. Now, the obvious things that I could say, the lighting and the colors and stuff are quite good. But the overall finish on it is rough in some spots, you know? Like, refinement isn't everything, okay? Like, you can paint figures in a more painterly style, but confidence in brushwork is a major component of making a painterly style work. Here, some of the brushwork feels like it lacks a little confidence, you know? So what if we did it with a painting brush instead? An artsy brush, like a oil painting brush. I don't tend to use these very much, but we can play with them. I mean, practice is everything anyways, but yes, generally speaking, the time will push a figure. There is diminishing returns, right? So here, like, if I was painting this line work, right, you can be kind of rough with the brush strokes, but understanding these shapes, like this one probably cuts off too early. Some of the light here could make a little more sense. And using the brushwork to express the form, if you want to talk about expressionism, right? Long, confident, fluid brushstrokes is the key to making this style work, right? There's a really subtle difference between confidence and what comes off as laziness or like unfinished, you know? Right, and then we can take some of this sky, this lighter tone. Hey, you've been pushing the light on the chest, but some of the line work, I gotta go smaller. Here could be, you know, it would fall further down on the chest, creating some more highlights and stuff. A lot of the brush strokes just like stop. Like, this is too sharp of a change in light. Like, you need something in between, and then there isn't really a light here or in the neck. Okay, so there's something to be said about, yeah, just like the level of finish and definition, even if we're like ignoring the idea of blending. I've been and painting on the same layer. So what I'm going to do is insert, insert a photo, add. Damn it. Insert a photo. Make it the 100%. There we go. All right. So you should be able to see like just adding some extra light here, adding some extra brushwork. It's going to make the figure feel more finished, right? Defining some of these volumes better all creates for the feeling of a more finished product overall. And I can speak on the fact that like one of my favorite painters, you guys have probably heard me talk about the portrait artist John Singer Sargent before, is not particularly known for being like refined in the sense of like, oh, it's so perfectly smooth and all the materials are rendered to like hyper realism. No, he's famous for like being able to express shape and form and material and the expression of faces with minimal brushwork, right? Okay, so more in this case. Like you have a general good idea of where to place light and shadow, but you have to do a bit more, right? Oh, Nacho, how are you? Thanks for the raid. How was your stream? Okay, so we look now. All right. Makes sense. I hope so. But basically, like, yeah, got to put in a little more work. All right. Let's see. Where are we? The next was Eric. I used some of the techniques for the face that you talked about on your stream. You were painting a female. Well, I was painting a sister battle. We don't want to send the Warhammer people over the edge and go crazy saying that it's a female space marine. All this was the fastest I ever finished a model. I think it was about 5 hours. It's pretty good. Trying to get faster so I can get through my backlog. Cool, let's take a look. Oh, I'm not. It's fine. I'm making a joke about people going nuts about the idea of female space marines. I think it's so funny. Pretty good. Yeah, I think your lighting is a little rough. All right, by lighting I mean your photography lighting is really harsh, so it makes seeing some things a little more difficult. But I think in general, the light placement and stuff is quite nice. I think some of your color choices are a bit much. The face is pretty good. She has a kind of weird face on this particular model, but not bad. The things that I think are going to help you really pointing out is, let's see here. All right, we're switching back to the other brush. All right. Dark lining is going to help. All right, so we've got to create separation elements, okay? Hi, Mose. So things like here, right? There's like a bump on my screen that is literally, get out of, stopping me from painting right there. All right, there we go. So, okay, so definition is key. Right, this looks, parts of this look pretty defined because of the light is so harsh, but we've got to create some separation here. You've also got some pretty nasty mold lines. What do you use to assemble these? Like, what glue do you use? Are you using cement, like plastic cement? Tamia? Okay. So when you run into these sort of like parts like this that are really hard to sand or scrape, take some of the cement and like remove most of the cement off of it, and you can like brush it across the seam line or the mold line, right? And that'll get rid of some of that flashing. So you kind of scrape it down as well as you can, and then take some of the cement and brush it across, like brush it across this direction. And that'll often melt some of those nastier lines. It might ruin the details a little bit, but it's easier to paint the details than it is to like repaint the details and fix them, make them show back up, like freehand them basically, than it is to try and hide that seam. Okay, here, right, I'm gonna create some more definition here. Really try and separate all these elements out nicely. I think the hair is separated quite well. I think you did a pretty good job on the plant too. It's getting a little weird down towards the bottom, but yeah, and then like you have to come in and create some separation between all these wraps. Now, a little thing. I don't think the yellow is necessarily working great. It's a little too yellow. Right, so what I would say is let's desaturate that a bit. I'm gonna just place this on top. It's like it's like a yellow spandex or something that's like really yellow. I'm making this gray right now, but I'm gonna lower the opacity on this to just shift it a bit, right? So you can get something a little more natural than this because it's a bit much at the moment. Especially when you have all this green and magenta, right? You're using a lot of like really bright color, even the kind of purplish magenta hair. Right, this violet with magenta highlights. You can submit to Feedback Friday now, but I can't promise I'll get to it today. But then if I don't get to it today, I'll get to it the next time. All right, so if we take this and just, right, tone this back, maybe something, you know, a little more desaturated than her skin might feel a bit more natural. And then we can duplicate it and change it to like maybe either darken it, right? So she has like a dark wraps, or we can make it a little lighter so she has like brighter wraps than her skin. but separating it in value more from her skin will help create some further definition stuff too, right? You know what I mean? Something maybe like that. Right, just pushing it a little bit more. You gotta find that good value where it's a little different than the skin, so it stands out well, and you can see what the color contrast does. Okay. Yeah, maybe do leather or something then if you're trying to get away from the bone color, or shift the bone. I often, when I do wraps, I like to make them maybe like slightly more reddish, like reddish gray, and then the bone might be more greenish gray, like on the side of yellow, right? So one's slightly more orange, one's slightly more green. But you can change the color of like these khakis quite a bit and create enough distinction between them. Okay. As for the face, yeah, it's pretty good. Like I said, she has kind of a smushed face on this figure. It's a little weird, but I think it's pretty strong overall. Okay. Weird question, but I know you sometimes paint with magnifiers. Do you use them when in judging? No, never. Wolfsark, hello, thanks for following, by the way. All right, who was next? Believe it was Hip Hop Frogs. Yes, I'm one of the 100,000 people working on this guy. Whip obviously got to fix some stuff like shadows on the helmet, as well as leg armor stuff, but it was looking for some general advice, as well as target advice towards the axe. I like what I did, but I think it needs a little extra love, and I don't know what I should be looking, what that should be looking like. Okay. Let's take a look. No, I paint with glasses because it helps me be a little more precise. I can paint more precise than I can see. Like most painters hit a point eventually at which their hands work better than their eyes, even if you have really good vision. It also lets me hold the miniature slightly further away, so I'm not painting like, 3 inches from my face, which I feel like causes a little extra eye stress, like trying to focus on something that close, or I can hold it a bit further away and have magnification. Okay. This is not bad. I think it's a little light overall. Let's check the... I'm wondering how much, because this doesn't even look black. Is this a black base? Or is it gray? Because this doesn't look black to me. I'm wondering if... Yeah, that's what's going on. That feels more natural, huh? Yeah, that's just bad. Not great exposure because there was no like true blacks at all in this picture. Okay. Yeah, I would say like the lighting is pretty well placed. Seems pretty good. The non-metallic is it's not bad. Yeah, the legs aren't done, and the horns. I think the lighting on the face is pretty good. It's maybe a little bright. So what I'm going to do for the armor is we're just going to tone it down a little bit. Maybe not with so much blue either. This is very like blue, steel blue. But something like maybe even like a dark greenish, or maybe like a dark orange to contrast. So it's like this sort of like petroleum gray. We can tone this down a little bit and create a little more natural. Like the amount that this armor is damaged, this feels way too shiny for this level of weathering. All right, so I'm just gonna knock this back a little bit. And we could see if this feels a tad more naturalistic to you guys. It's also going to help the like arm and axe stand out more and focus those lights a bit better, right? I think you're probably pushing the lights a little too big. So if we look at the difference between this and this, right? This to me feels a little more like a dark steel, where this is a little too light blue. Okay. The other thing is on the arm. Okay. For the arm, I'm going to see you try and focus a little more on the overall general, on the wrong layer. Or I'm not on the wrong layer, but I need to lighten this up. So focusing a little more on the general shape of the arm here. So like this top part is a spear. This is pretty good. But then like down here, you start to lose this like kind of cylindrical shape of this part of the arm. The shadows get a little too dark in some of these sections. So, and then we want to try and bring just a little more focus to the hand because it is quite important. Okay, something like that. You can see before and after. I'm going to tone it down just a little bit. And then we're going to redraw some of these shadow shapes because I don't feel like your shadows, you have quite enough of these larger shadow forms. All right, so I'm trying to reinforce that front deltoid as it kind of tucks under, reinforce the bicep. And then as we move down here, more of this back part of the hand, maybe even some of the lower parts of the fingers get a little bit darker, and we can start to push these shadows a little bit more as this kind of elongated shape runs down. Right, and then this area, I would get rid of this shadow entirely and make that more mid-tone. Okay, so that should help define the arm a little better. The overall shape to the arm. I've already looked at multiple of this model. I've seen it so many times. Okay, for the axe, I think you're trying to do too many things at once. You have this nasty flesh thing growing on top of it. Why are so many people painting this guy? Because it's cool. That's the only reason. It's just a cool looking model, I guess. People just like it. Yeah, you get the like gross fleshy thing, but then you're also doing rust. So I would pick one or the other, right? So you probably don't need the rust on top of having the flesh. So I would get rid of the rust and maybe just make this like a darker gray blue or something. That way also that the fleshy growth on top of it stands out a little bit more. Because right now it's like you're trying to transition to this orange rust, but you have this pink flesh right next to it. So it's causing it to get lost a little. And this should help define the flesh bits a bit more. See? So the flesh parts start to stand out more. Okay, so that's my big feedback for you. Obviously, finish the rest of it. But that is, I think that should handle some parts. If you want, try and maybe push some of the definition of these parts a little bit better. Don't be afraid to use this reddish brown to like outline sections. Okay. Cool. All right. Would I add a third area of flesh? No. So what I think could work, I think you have kind of three focal areas on this guy. You have, it's like this sort of triangle, right? I don't know if you guys can see that. You have this sort of triangle going on. You could, I've seen people do stuff like this where they do the like glow effect in the eye. So you could try that if you really wanted to. If you want to do the what's the Deathbringer, you know, the Frank Frazetta thing, and you could give him like glowing orange eyes like that. But then I would recommend toning down some of the highlight on the face even more, you know. Like then you basically have to knock down the highlighting to make that glow kind of stand out. But I don't think it's really necessary. I think the lighting of the figure itself does a good enough job adding some focus to the face. So you can see like there's not a huge difference between these two in terms of focus, right? That contrast up top still adds like the black on the bright white reflection still has plenty of contrast to make you want to look at his face. So, and having the like horns will help too. Ethan. Looking for ways to push this further. I want to do a freehand on the hat. I've just had trouble coming up with a sketch, so I'll add that at a later date. Was thinking of snowflakes. I don't know if the hat needs anything, to be honest. The figure itself is quite good. I'm not a huge fan of like overdoing the freehands if they're not really adding a whole lot. If I was going to do a freehand, it probably would be on her shirt, since you did the apron is like a leather apron. Just because I think the simple hat like kind of works better. I like the rendering on the hat, the stippling does a nice job giving that texture of like felt. So that's pretty cool. The snow owl is quite nice. Like the rendering in the eyes is good. Face is quite nice. Think maybe down here you could use a little more light on the shell. Just a bit. I mean, it doesn't even have to be like a super warm light, but just like, because it seems like you're going with like a kind of cold light. So you can create like a, let's do it as a hand. And you could give like some gloss to this shell here. Might make it feel a little more, might be a bit much, but something like that. Make it feel a little more realistic. Give it that kind of glossy shine. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about the front. I'm not a big fan of the fingernails. Your fingernails are generally like the same color as your skin. So like she doesn't have claws except for the little like your actual like length hanging off of your finger, you know. You can put a brighter highlight on them because they're shinier, but you don't need you don't need to make them overall brighter than the skin. I would say if there was one thing, like looking at the back of the model, this pink mushroom is a little distracting. So, because everything is like blue and lavender sort of colors, I mean, I know there's brown, but it's so neutral brown that it doesn't really do anything to the like overall color palette. I would say you might want to, like if you wanted to, maybe you could do like some kind of mildly pink, like a light pink sort of thing on her shirt. I don't know what exactly, whether it's like little flowers or something. I don't know what grandmas wear. You know, maybe something like that could add a little more interest if you feel like it's just too plain. But then, yeah, also getting some of that pink, other than the bit that's in her skin. And honestly, I think you could consider like going even a little bit more saturated in the face, just like build some of that color just a tiny bit more. Because you see it's not really doing anything right now. Like this, and then turn that back. It seems like a lot when you're zoomed in like that, but when you zoom out, it's not so strong, right? But yeah, I don't think the hat needs anything in particular. Yeah. Like I said, the leather looks good. Back looks generally quite good. So nice job. And yeah, I don't know if you want to go with like a dark or light pink here. Maybe like a darker rose sort of color like this. Oh, that's not going to do anything. I think this might work a little better. I don't know. If you want to keep it light, then maybe go with a lighter tone. Or even like a white with a, yeah. You could maybe even play with some of the like yellow you have here to create like the center. So you're also using a little bit of that like yellow from the beak elsewhere too, you know? All right. "6'2" koala. Hi, Eric. On this bus, I tried to push some color interest as much as possible. Considered adding a rim light, but decided against it in the end. Thanks in advance. Thank you for thinking it needed a rim light and then going, yeah, you know what? Maybe it doesn't. Because it really doesn't. Sometimes less is more, in fact. Okay, but what I do want to show you is that you've got some parts here that are a little much so in terms of shadows. In general, I think the figure is going quite nice, but we want to push some of the shape a little bit more, and some of the lines are a little harsh, okay? I'm not really going to comment on the metal. I think the metal is quite nice, so I don't really have anything to say there. But let's talk about the face a bit. So this shadow is a tad dark compared to the rest. So let's try and get something more like this. Like, there's no reason that if this is in shadow, And this is in shadow down here. Can you guys see where I'm drawing? Right here, right? There's no, this is at the same plane as this, right? So there isn't a reason for this up here to actually be darker than the rest of it. Doesn't really work that way. It's not like it's tucked in to the point where you can, it would be darker. Okay. Over here, I would try and enhance this a little bit. I would try and enhance the shadow under the eye a little more. This also is on the outside curve here, so that's going to be more in shadow, right? So getting that overall shape of the face. Now, this one, you wouldn't have a, so because the light is coming from this direction, okay, you'll have a stronger shadow here than you will over here, because just because of the way this volume works, where it curves, it's more perpendicular to the light, right? So because this one's more parallel to the light, you're not going to have as much of this volume showing as you will on the other one. Because the light is just not hitting it in a way where you would see that. And then you want to try and round this a little bit. This shadow is good. Make sure it comes over. Make sure you have shadow under the chin. And then we can soften this shape how we need. Now, that's pretty good. You need some dark shadow on the neck. It's a little too light, so we need some deeper shadow in here. Especially when it gets close to the armor, it's going to get darker. Right? This is where occlusion shadows really come into effect. It's when two objects get close together, they become darker. Right? And then you need some, whether it's pure shadow or not, you need some of this like back in the face a little bit to get his expression right, you know? This guy is angry and scowly. You will have a little bit of deeper shadow here. Even if it's mid-tone, to help define some of these shapes, like maybe, right? This line here, this volume here, is similar to this volume here. So this might get more of a shadow, or this might get less. And then the brow actually does curve some, like so. So it's not like a hard ridge there. You can soften that a little bit as it rounds over. Okay, so if we look now, you can see how that pops out the expression a bit more. His brow be furrowed, yo. All right. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, it's my resting face too. Especially when looking at your guys' models. Boom, roasted. Apologize for the off-topic question, Eric. Would it be appropriate to bring a finished mini to a class you're teaching for feedback during downtime? Was going to try and make it to one of your sessions at the Tacoma Open. You can bring it. I'll try and take a look. And I'll have downtime at Tacoma anyways. So, yeah, even if it's not during class when I might not have a ton of downtime, I'll be around. So. Masso. The idea of the ambient light is the sunset. Yo, yo, yo. Might have to do a scientific class about painting sunsets sometimes. At some point. Hey guys, what do you know about the sun? Where in the position of the sky is the sun during a sunset? It's on the horizon, which means what for the lighting? Where are shadows going to be? Super horizontal, correct. So instead of downward shadows, we have horizontal shadows. Here we go again with the Australians trying to gaslight me that I'm coming to Australia. Okay, I think there are some parts where it seems like you're getting it mostly correct, and some of this might be just the photo, but yeah, when it comes to pulling off a sunset, you need like very strong horizontal shadows. Okay, that means all the light on her face needs to be lit from the side, like her jaw all through here is much too in shadow for a light that is coming in from like the front or slightly from the side based on this, right? This would probably throw further. So like this is too dark here. It should be lighter. And then what else do we know about sunsets? Tell me what you guys know about sunsets. What is the color of the light during a sunset? Orange, peach, and salmon. Correct. It's super orange. Okay. Let's do a little thing. Okay, you want to make this look like more like a sunset? Here we go. Let's take and make an adjustment layer. Okay. We're going to play with the color balance. So, shadows. Right? Shadows are going to be more blue, slightly more bluish, slightly more magenta. Okay? So like this kind of slightly purplish sort of light. And then the midtones are going to be more red. And the highlights will be more orange. Okay, so the difference in coloration matters a lot here. Right. So, yeah, long shadows, very horizontal. And then you have to shift through these warm tones. Okay. So more reddish, salmony midtones, more orangish lights, and then more cold, slightly kind of lavender blue shadows, right? Okay. As far as the actual painting is concerned, besides this bit that I did on the face to try and correct this, you're making some of the highlights too small. It's like it's too pushed into the corners and stuff. Try and round the face a little bit more. Like the leg, this is rendered quite well. The armor obviously isn't done, but like the cloth looks really good, and yeah, and the rest of it's not finished. So, but the overall lighting, right, needs to. This is these sorts of peachy, not even peach, but like, yeah, straight up like creamsicle orange, right? That's the sort of tones we're going for the lights. So she should not really have harsh shadows under her eyebrows, right? Most of these shadows go away. You actually get some light under the nose. That's drawn too big, but you get the idea. And then there's going to be like light on the neck because of the direction that the lighting is coming in from, right? Much lower. So if you guys can see the difference here. It changes that angle. Make sense? I hope so. All right. Matt. Here. First time here, but long time watcher. Finished my first mini for the year and very keen to get your thoughts on how you'd elevate it more. Thanks a lot. How would I elevate this more? So, I mean, it looks pretty well rendered. I like the metallic and the little gemstone things. Those are cool. The face is pretty good. The colors, however, are boring. What I mean by that is it's like, hey, this is a white shirt. It's gray and white. This is a black hat. It's gray and black. This band, I mean, the most interesting part is like the feather. Or the metallic, actually. You're like using actual color variation in the gold and stuff. And it's quite good. But yeah, like the hair is red. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's just linear and there's no like ambience to it at all. I'm not saying you have to paint with a heavy ambience, but give things like some variation, Like try and try and play with it a little bit. Make it a little more exciting than just like, yeah, this is gray, right? Like, yeah, it's a bluish gray, but it's still just gray. So let's play around. We'll do the same thing here. Okay, the easiest one is to say like, oh, shadows, we'll do shadows slightly more bluish or something, right? Maybe some slightly more purpley shadows or whatever, right? And then maybe a little bit more warm lights, right? Pretty common sort of thing. And even just that, right? Like now this just isn't so bland. The leather is too stripy, and that's probably the fault of the sculpt, I'm guessing, and not so much the painting. Though you can fix the painting, like fix the sculpt through painting, why it looks like wood instead of leather. Right, and then you have this sort of slightly more purplish tones, right? So because this didn't change properly because it's a mid-tone, right? Like, or it's a lighter value anyways. So you would have to, at least on the like cloth or the whites, you'd need like this light lavender sort of color or whatever in the shadows of the white to make it match the ambience of the rest of it. It's not about like absolute values, like, well, your bottom third of values should be more blue, and your ones closer to white should be more yellow. No, it's about the like zones, right? Like this is a shadow value for the white. So if you're going to do it, all your shadows slightly more purpley, then the shadow zones of the white need to be more purpley also, even if they're a much lighter value, right? Then there's a couple little spots on the face that you might want to correct because you have the lighting like here, like that's all quite good, but you can actually see a little bit in the picture that, well, if that's true, you should probably have some highlighting like here, because this matches sort of this angle, right? I'm going to overdo it here just a little bit, and then I can tone it down. So there should probably be one there, and there might even be one that catches in the eye like that. This here will probably have, there will be one on the nostril, because the light is based on this like profile view, which you did a quite good job of representing. But yeah, you need to catch some of the, you actually will sometimes get this like line of light that goes all the way up around the nose. And then you probably need one a little bit on the neck. You might even want to add just a touch to the this area here, the sort of the jaw. Okay, now that was me overdoing it, but you could tone that down and it fits your level of light a little more. Okay, so we can kind of see what adding those few more highlights do for the shape of the face. Cool. Hope so. Be more bold. Gotta be more bold. Baba. All right. Finally diving into NMM and OSL beyond a 28mm belt buckle. Went into the deep end and grabbed this Mineworks model. Yep. Tried to emulate the dirty metal style. The setting is a night scene with the LED stylized light source from above while having a red lighting from underwater below. With like general guidance moving forward as I start to refine. Okay. Yeah, they're playing Kill Team. All right. Yeah, you dove into the deep end, all right. That is not, this is not the, you're combining, basically, I was talking about it on, I don't like the term OSL that much. You're painting two light sources, okay? One is here. This is a light source, so the pool is the light source, okay? And then you have a second light source from above somewhere, but right now, I don't have a clear picture of where that second light is and what is this blue light. Okay, so there's a more yellowish white light here, and then there's a blue light over here and a red light here. So we've got three light sources, maybe. Okay. If the light is red, make the light red. All right, this is way too muddy. Okay. The pool is supposed to be red. Make it red. Right? The thing that is you will know it's red because it is turning things red. Not because, right? So this turns red because the pool is red. All right. And you got to push the light even more. So it feels like the water is glowing, right? So no dark values in the thing that is emitting light. The thing that is emitting light must be bright. It is a literal source of light, and the only way to emulate that is to make it brighter than anything else. Okay. Now, because of that, then we take some of this red. See how muddy gray red this is? Like this does not feel like red light reflecting off of metal. No, the red light needs to be like actually red on, in fact, because it's gold, now it's going to shift slightly orange and be quite saturated, okay? So you have to like go for it. There's no like sort of doing this effect. You either do it or you don't, right? It's like if you're going to reflect the light from the pool, make it shine, right? So anything from this lower angle, right, we'll get that bright red glow on it. Okay, but only things that would bounce from the pool, right? Eric, is a rule of thumb of how much a light source's hue will shift the local color of the given material? I'm not going to answer that question right now. That is way too in-depth of a question to answer. It depends on the material. It depends on whether it's like metallic works differently than normal materials. There's way too many factors there. And it is probably the most complicated subject that you could even can make consideration for. Okay, then you can now take and brighten this up a little bit and add some further specular little reflections of an even brighter light as it reflects. Like this is going to reflect quite bright of the pool, right? Okay. So see the difference there? Like before, it's just like red. Now it's like, oh, that's a light that's reflecting under there. There is not an artistic method to simplify it. No, it is an ultra complex subject. Okay, then you want a second light from above. Okay, well, is that this blue light or is it which one is it? So now we need some sort of reflection here. I'm going to take and just make a add layer to push the lights. Now we got to think about because of the perspective and point of view, we got to push the lights on the metal more in order to create that bright reflection on parts that are going to be reflecting the light directly. And the key to non-metallic is being consistent with where that light placement is. Okay, so you need those lights to reflect the same across the different planes and shapes based on where the orientation of the material, and it's also based on the position of the viewer, right? So things like this in the back of the neck and whatever else, you got to make sure that these are getting hit properly. All right. So you should be able to see now the differences and this high contrast, right? He said under blue light, but I didn't see under blue light. Style with a LED stylized light source from above. Doesn't say blue LED. That's why I was curious where this other light source is coming from and why it's only hitting the back there. Oh, maybe sorry, you were correcting your own statement. Right? Push out the contrast. It's metal. Make it shiny. All right. Makes sense? Helpful? This would probably still be way more red. And maybe it's like this deep saturated red. Because of the way light works, the things closest to the light are going to be more intense. The inverse square law, it's a whole thing, a whole nother thing to learn about. Yes, blue on gold reflects greenish. That is correct. If you want to see it, look at like gold statues or whatever. You see that what color the sky changes. It turns like this pale greenish gray. Saint X. Hi Eric, here's one I did a while ago. The face is done in oils over an acrylic sketch. The rest is acrylics. It's sort of half historical, half fantasy. The guy is supposed to have, been the inspiration for Popeye. The vest I'm not very happy with. It should be a dark navy wool. Okay. It's not bad. I mean, the face is weird because Popeye face, but generally it's looking pretty good. I think the shirt works all right. I think we're getting a bit much of the like actual light source, so things that maybe look like they're volumetric rendering aren't. I see some rendering here and here, but some of the other parts are, I don't believe that's actually painted. So okay, let's just start on the face. So I talked about this in the last feedback stream, but I think you submitted before that. Be careful with some of these like shadows. It can be very easy to overdo these like forehead wrinkles. They are not that, they don't need to be that dark. Okay. They still face the light. You can tone that back for sure. Some of the rest of the face is pretty well rendered. You're not putting enough shadow under the nose. Okay, like if we compare shadows, like I'm gonna draw some shapes, okay? Real simply, I'm gonna take like a dark brown, right? And I'm just gonna draw like a sketch of where I think, right? Okay, this is shadow, right? The obvious one would be there's a shadow under the jaw, Okay, the nose is very large, so we will have a shadow under the nose. The nose is very bulbous, so we get shadow like that. Good. He's got these deep eyelids or eye bags, so we need to get shadow under there. Okay, he's got big cheeks, so we need to make sure the underside of these are shadowed. Okay, this is in shadow. Then you get maybe some bits of shadow in these parts. All right. So that's anywhere where like true shadow would be. Maybe there's probably going to be some in the ear also. So true shadows, okay? Like now if I zoom out, right? This is not blended at all, but I zoom out and create just like that. It doesn't even seem to matter much that there's not any blending or anything to those shadow shapes. They just work in the context of like the scene, right? Yes, I could do something like whatever. Anyways, you guys, I think you get it, right? Then you can think about like blending them out and stuff and creating smoother forms, and you can introduce further detail within the shadows. But just establishing the like general shadow shapes goes a really long way, right? So the difference here. Okay. Let's turn it down just a little bit so some of those other shadows start to show up. All right. Now the next, and then with the other part, right? Like the forehead shadows, you know, they don't need to be that dark. Okay, because the forehead's in light. Yeah, you want to keep the outline, those darker occlusion shadows. But the point I was trying to make is when you look at it from a distance, right? Even at full, whatever, because it's too small now to see those details that like even this reads fine, right? So that's the big thing. All right. Now, wool is very like what I'm not wearing wool, but it's a similar texture, right? Okay, you can see that like my black shirt is not, or my black hoodie is not black because the specular is like extremely scattered across the surface of the fabric. You actually will get these sorts of grays and stuff that you have here, right? So these like dark purpley, you know, grays. You want to include those, right? Avoid these ones that are like too green blue, right? And create some larger form here. So like the whole top of his chest, right? Anywhere that like faces upwards should have this sort of purpley kind of gray. If you're going for, you know, this soup, like so dark navy blue that it's essentially black. right? Something along those lines. And then you can push it a little bit further with a lighter kind of lavender blue color like this. This is still like a mid-tone, right? Middle value. And we can create some additional light that catches just like these edges and stuff, the areas where you'll have a bit more light reflecting off of it. But still it's super scattered, okay? So the intensity of the light, like the how soft or specular a material is, basically how matte it is, determines how soft these lights work on this shape, right? And that still reads like a dark navy blue, you know? Freddie Newton, hello. Oh, no one, my bad. Hi, how you doing? Then you got to figure out like what kind of material. I don't know what kind of material what is that, an ascot, whatever you call the necktie. You got to figure out what kind of material that is, and if that's a shinier material, right, then you should have more. And if it's black, I don't know, because I'm not familiar with this uniform. If it's like a more shiny black, or if it's also matte, like what's the difference between its material and the wool coat, right? Makes sense? Hope so. Pretty good. Another little thing. Just desaturate the beard a little bit, you know? Just a touch. Doesn't take much, but just a small adjustment there can go a long way to making the face feel a little more natural. Right? Doesn't even have to be that much. It could just be a little bit. All right. Rocky Boy. Hey Eric, I did this a little while back and I felt really proud at the time. I use it as a game piece in Blood Bowl. I consider it almost a display piece. What would you improve on my mini to take to the next level? Okay. More chroma in shadows in the skin. Palette feels a little too warm only. More depth and contrast in the gold. I spent 8 to 10 hours. Okay. This is probably the best view. Again, not the best photo. You've got the lighting is a little too overhead. Like it's very, you know that the lighting isn't great because this is the shadow tone you have here on the skin, this like super dark like tone, but then over here it's gone, right? So your photo is like getting blown out. So you've got some like nasty reflections that are affecting the my perception. I can also tell by your photograph that you have like one light really off to the side, right? There's like this one light here is basically lighting it from the side. I'll do it with another layer so you guys can see it better. Okay. You can't hide these things from me. See how the black plinth has the two lights reflected, or the black base has these two lights reflecting off of it, and see how bright this one is and how far to the side of the base it is, where this one is better and more in the middle. So you want it, yeah, you want them to try and be more in the middle so you don't get these like crazy big blown out reflections on top of the surface like this, because this is like completely blown out. It's hard to see. As far as the figure painting itself goes, it's pretty good. You're probably overdoing it, I'm guessing, here, because this looks like so dark, basically black to me. Like, you don't have to use maximum contrast on everything, okay? You cannot stress this enough. Like, let some elements be lighter, some elements be darker, all right? So this like, oh, I'm going to paint the skin and I'm going to use like pure, like almost pure black for the shadows. It's just it's too far, right? Don't be afraid to use just like tones like this, right? This can work as a shadow color for skin, especially if he's like a pale Viking, right? It's getting AMG. Oh, hey, Dallas. How you doing? What up, dog? Okay, so don't feel the need that you need to use like pure black in the shadows on everything. It's thanks, man. I'll see you in like a couple weeks, right? See you at Adepticon, I assume. Okay, and even then, probably here on the skin, you can use some more middle tones like this. Like, you don't need the pure dark shadow for the entirety of the abs. Like, let the general shape like be a little more full, right? Like, maybe this curves in a way where it's not facing directly at the light, but it's also not in pure shadow. So you might have these, what I would call like these mid-tone shadow kind of colors, right? These half tones. Okay. And this overall will increase like separation and readability through the figure, because now you have like clear separation between like what the skin and what's on top of the skin, right? Otherwise the shadows kind of start to blend together and it's all just like dark. Muscle duck, hello. Thanks for following. Okay, separate the planes more of gold, right? Like if the side of this you're going for dark, you can see how blown out it is, because I'm assuming it's supposed to be like a darker color like this, right? Like, you want to create separation in the planes, okay? So that there is, you know, these parts that are, yes, this here is light and this part is a dark reflection. And when it comes to non-metallic, you're not actually painting light and shadow, you are painting reflections of light and shadow. Okay? So things that are in light, or you are painting a reflection of the thing that is literally light. Right, so this shoulder pad, for example, right, doesn't have, none of it is facing anything that would be in shadow. So the whole upper section here of this shoulder would be light, right? And then here, none of this part of this side of the wing is facing the, is hitting that main light source. So you wouldn't really have it, okay? Then things like this, when you do metallic, you have to create this sort of outline. So whether it's a ground reflection or whatnot, this will help create further readability and reflectivity to the object. Okay. So like this thing, hit this edge because maybe that whole thing reflects the light. His eye things here, right? This might reflect like that. Okay. So stuff like that. All right, good. Sam Bruce. Hey Eric, just looking for some general feedback on this bust I did as a portrait present for my partner's birthday. The general theme for the base is inspired by Monet. Makes sense. I see the Monet. Some water lilies. Okay, what's the main view? Is it this one? Because I don't think so. Based on the position of the plinth, I'm going to go with this is the actual main view. And I kind of like it more. I like her looking off to the side a little bit. It feels more shy. She has a very closed sort of posture, just like, you know. Okay. Generally speaking, I think it's quite nice, and I hope your partner is happy. Things that you could improve on. Let's see here. I think you could push the shadows of the skin a little bit more. It seems like you're using some dark parts in here, but you were maybe a little nervous to go too far with some on like other parts. So let's try and consider like darkening some areas a little bit more. It's just a little bit, you know, like doesn't need a whole lot, but it can help to create a little further definition in these parts. I think you're probably also overdoing the highlight on the face, but it could be the photo. So maybe try and bring some color back into the face. Tone some of this stuff down a little bit. And then you are using black, but you are not using enough of it. And what I mean by black is just these dark tones, right? These line separators. So like she needs that thin line to like separate her lips, right? Dark in the nostrils, which she did. The eyelashes are quite good. But then we have some other parts like back here where it's could use a little more. This for sure, right? You gotta get down in here and dark line these areas. Create separation there, like separation in the armpit. Separation here. These are quite pushed together, so you might actually want to dark line it just a little bit. I always say like you have this specular highlight often in the cleavage here if you're doing like a forward lighting, but if they're fully pressed together, then that highlight goes away, okay? What else? Oh, the tattoo. Okay, tattoo, if you want it under the skin, you've got this highlight on the arm. Try and come back carefully and just take some of the skin tone and just like glaze it on top a little of the arm. You know, you got this like white, this whitish light, right? It should blow out like the tattoo a little bit because the ink is under the skin. Okay. And then you can come back and you can, yeah, I can tone that down a little so you could see the difference in the two here. Like this pushes that tattoo just under the skin a little bit, right? Instead of looking like a drawing on top. But yeah, the main thing I seem to be picking up is that you're a little hesitant to really like use some nice chromatic shadows, right? Like really push some of this in order to, yeah, create that shape and definition where we need. Okay. Right. So, okay, see how this defines the figure more, right? By using some shadows here. And then we can play a little bit more on top of that. All right. Hope that was helpful. Next. Fallen shots. Hi, Eric. Looking for some general feedback on the OSL as it's my first time. Trying to imagine a fairly strong, maybe staged light or something. Sure. I don't believe you about network privacy settings. See, you totally saved. Okay. So we got the red hat here, or red OSL, right? Coming from what seems like generally the bottom left. Okay. This again is hard for me to tell exactly because I'm guessing this is quite satiny paint. So all of this stuff, right? I'm guessing that this is not painted on because these highlights are way too consistent with each other. Like most would not know to put these sorts of highlights like in these areas. Though you can use the photo as a reference if you want in order to paint those. Yeah. If you want to do them in like a blue light or like a cooler light from the other side, which will often help to define both sides of the face more, right? So you have these two lights interacting instead of just one. Now, in terms of the OSL, now you don't need to take another picture. I can tell what's what here. The OSL, you want to make sure that that is lighting everything that is facing downwards, especially if it's like the only light from this side. And the things that are lower will get stronger. Okay. So it's coming up from the bottom left, so it's going to get all in the ear and stuff because it's, or not bottom left, but bottom right, you know? So it's going to get all in these areas. It's going to get under the, it's going to light up under the hat a little bit. And you're adding some here, but it's also going to affect the white. So right now this white is of the brim of the hat is too bright. So when I put red on it, it turns, it looks like it's darker than it is, you know? So you need this to be overall darker with another like white over here. So you have something in between, whether it's something like this, right? So you can create that effect where the pink is brighter. And then this, I don't know if this is supposed to be, is this like pure black or not, but I'm guessing it should be a little darker than that, but it might just be the shine that's happening. But anyways. Hello, hi Namara. Okay. Then, once you do that, then I recommend taking a tone like this, right? And using like a pale bluish gray green type of thing or whatever, and painting these as like actual, like use this photo as reference and paint on this side of the face. I'm gonna like really exaggerate it so you can see where they are, but like not saying do them turquoise green like this, but creating a secondary light can really help create like interaction between these two light sources, right? So some of it even creeps onto this side of the face where you have mostly the red OSL on the other side. Add that drama. Have fun with it. I mean, shit, you could even do like a bright turquoisey if, like this if you wanted to. But then you have to remember that like white isn't actually going to be white when you do this. It's going to be like an off white. And this would be like, and you get some reflecting in here. So I don't know, something like that. Makes sense. I'd change his shirt too. Just make it black. If you want to keep that dark feeling to everything. Boyd Land. Hey Rick, I watched your video on black armor and wanted to give it a shot. Would love some tips on how to improve. Also, any advice on the camo cloak? This looks good. Okay, that's what I have to say about that. Hey, you followed it well. So I'm not going to really talk about the black armor that much, other than to say you're maybe missing the highlight on the backpack. And maybe just a tiny bit more on the fingers, because they're pretty important. But other than that, light placement and stuff looks quite good. Gun could maybe also use like one more little bit, the red. Maybe use just like a tiny bit more. So let's talk about the camo cloak then. Oops. So I see you're trying to do the like Space Marine 2 like shifting thing. It's pretty cool, but I don't quite know what it's trying to turn into, right? Because the one in the game is weird because it like is literally a cloaking device, so it affects his whole body. It's like a field that goes over him. This one, yeah, only affects the sort of marine. I can see you're doing a little bit of like reflection on the backpack and stuff, which is all right. But I don't quite get the sense. Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of do. All right, let's take a look. Let's see what we could do to make it a little more interesting. One thing that'll definitely make it more interesting is giving the camo cloak portion, so the part that is not shifting, right? The blue part is supposed to be the part that's shifting, right? So that's like the shimmery cloaking effect, right? The tan part is where it's still the original cloak. So what will make it more interesting is doing literally any kind of design, right? We can take like a camo-y green or whatever and just give it something. To make it, some kind of pattern, whatever it is. I don't know what you do. Doritos or just random shapes, right? Yeah, tactical Doritos. That will help sell the fact that this part is the actual cloak more. And then for the actual this part, you have this bit of weird like dark blue happening here. To make sure that doesn't happen. So you want this like volumetric light to go all the way down to the glow, right? And the glow can only make things brighter, okay? So as this thing starts to like shimmer up the cloak, it's going to just only increase the light. And I like this one, but I think you could do this glow a little bit more. So I'm going to do like an add layer, and I'm going to have it come up a little bit higher. Because it should feel like it's light, right? Because it's supposed to be bending the light around him or whatever. You're like seeing what, you know, seeing through it or whatnot. So it's just like make the glowing part like a little brighter, and then maybe add some glowing part to like these a little bit to make it feel like they're starting to glow some too. And have this shimmer up. And then yes, if you wanted to get fancy, you could do some kind of crackling effect, where it's like, it's not just a smooth edge, it's like either like a lightning crackle, like this sort of like shimmery haze effect where there's like power to this, right? And there's a lot of ways you could do this if you wanted to get, you know, you could do it like this with just like these like arcing kind of effects, right? So it's like here we create this like arc that kind of goes around and like shimmers, right? Or, I know someone said it, hexes are very sci-fi-y. You could try and do like the honeycomb sort of pattern, but I don't think this is necessarily very 40K feeling. It's a little more infinity feeling to me. Feels a little more, the hexes feel a little more, yeah, StarCraft than 40K. So, cool? Makes sense? And if you want to make it actually glow on the armor, like, make it glow on the armor, you know? Like, really try and apply some of it around these parts a little more to make it feel like it's shining on here or whatever. Because it would, if it is going to shine, it's going to like shine on the bottom of this and like on the bottom of these little guys and stuff. So, but that's only if you want to go for that. Yeah, that's why I think lightning, like when I picture energy effects in 40K, I picture crackling lightning over hexes and stuff. Maybe Necrons, like you could, but Necrons don't use hexes, they use the weird little like pixel squares. So Camp Fear, hello. So the aesthetic for Space Marines tends to be a little more lightning based. Hey, look, another Space Marine, another Black Space Marine. Steve. Hey, Eric, I've been working on my kill team for a while, blah, blah, blah. Spend some time on the sergeant. I know they're good enough for tabletop, but I always wanted to push myself and improve on the focal points that could also translate to my display pieces like the face, overall shape, rendering, etc. I'm all ears. The most base scheme is not figured out yet. Okay. I mean, it's really good, dude. Like, Steve, you feel very self-conscious about your painting. It's quite good. If you want to do more, you are missing some details, right? So push details a little bit more. Like, what I mean, like here, this grenade gets lost. Like add some more little lights and stuff to this, you know, like give them some, I don't know, little green lights or whatever to add a little something. You're maybe overusing black a little much, like make these antennas kind of stand out, right? Like, it's just going to help separate elements more. Whatever color you want to use, but like this would stand out more if it was a different material than the black painted armor. So you can check to see how I do mine if you want. Same with the grenade, like don't do it like pure black, do it like slightly lighter, maybe similar to the arm. Will help those sort of details stand out. I mean, this is basically how I would paint my power sword, so okay. You can add a little glow to around the gun a little bit further. I like to try and give it's like a bloom. It's not really an OSL effect when you do that. So it's like supposed to be so bright that it's affecting the like your eyes, you know. The face is good. If you want to make him even more space marine-y, something about the jaw feels a little weird. Like, seems like you're trying to do. Are you trying to do a 5 o'clock shadow? But it's white hair. Okay. Yeah, it's too much right now. All right, so let's bring that back. Use more of the like neutral gray. 5 o'clock shadow just honestly not going to show up that much with white hair. Like it does a bit, like you get the like peppering of white, but it's not going to be like that strong. So don't overdo it there. So you can tone that down a little bit. I like to also try and push that light a little bit further here to give them a little more, what do you want to call it? Like chiseling to their jaw line here. So you can kind of push that shape there just a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, overall, the face is quite nice. Metallic looks pretty good. You could probably use some secondary lights here. So, like this one might be a little too bright because it's not really part of that. And then you could introduce like, I see you did one like here, but yeah, you could maybe break these up a little bit more. Like I don't really have one on the arm, so maybe introducing one here. Often, like you can look at this main view and think like, okay, well, I should probably add one here or something to kind of reflect the ground. Or you might want to wait until you decide how you're going to base them in order to like pick what color reflection you want to do. But yeah, that can help frame the arm and make it feel more metallic-y. I would also consider this might instead of this white reflection here, it might glow on the bottom of his shoulder pad. So using like a sort of green instead to create that plasma glow, like the reflection of the gun, right? Something like that. Same with this guy. This guy needs just a little bit of that plasma on it. Cool. You could also consider taking like a really dark, like this is the color of your plasma gun. Take like a dark teal blue like this and just like very subtle create some kind of reflection like so. Maybe the black armor is just glossy enough to catch some of that glow on it, right? Because it's not really glow in this case, it's a reflection of the gun, like in the armor. So you can goof around a little like this to try and make it just a little more interesting, you know? Wherever it would be, I don't know. You'd have to like look at what you want your main view to be and decide if and where you want to place these, right? But you don't want to do them too crazy. Okay, makes sense? Is that cool? Like, just try and get everything detailed. Try and yeah, and then add like a bit more little secondary reflections and things like that. And freaking paint his base, dude. How's your freehand? Pretty good. Yeah, this looks nice. All right. Murph. Hey, Eric. This is still work in progress. I'm struggling with what colors to use for the ground. Would love your thoughts on that as well as how I might elevate the piece above tabletop. Wait, is this the theme of today? Tabletop models that you guys paint for tabletop, but then say you want to, paint like for display? Adidrix, hello. Yeah, Dallas, Murph paints a lot of Crisis Protocol figures. He did a Wrecking Crew display that got, I can't remember what it got at Nova, but it did pretty well. All right. So, I am not familiar with Adam Warlock's costume. So I don't know for sure. I'm guessing Dallas knows. Dallas is his armor like, or is this part black or is it gray? Otherwise, looking pretty good. It's black. Okay. All right. So you need some more black. Okay. So, like, we need to define some of these a little bit more. Let's lean into that comic bookiness of it a bit and try and like give it some proper like black shapes. Okay. Like you don't want this to be too bright. Well, then we'll make it look like a little shiny, like without making it like too shiny, right? But like use some, define these volumes a bit more with some actual black shadows. Like I feel like the arm is a little better, right? But like here underneath the lats and stuff, we could push that a little bit more. And then I'd say that, let's just switch this to a multiply, make it nice and dark. Then we can tone this down a little. It's probably still way too bright, like just too light gray. Okay. Something like that. And then with some highlights, then now we come back and with some highlights of the lighter gray that it was before, now we can like take and start to define some of these shapes and make the suit feel like slightly shinier, I guess. We're not going for symbiote black here of like, you know, he's constantly looking like he's wet or oily or whatever, I don't know. But, you know, give it a little shine, right? So first part darker. You see how gray it looks now that I've changed it? Right, so darkening it and then pushing the lights. Am I going with that green? Oh, this is just blue gray. It's gray, just with some color in it. What else? You're asking about the base, and don't overthink the base here. Like, this is too sandy. Darken this down, make it some kind of like rubble or whatever. I don't know. It's just, you don't need to get overly fancy with the dirt here. Just paint it dark. When in doubt, black it out. I mean, don't paint it literally black here, but just like, I don't know. Give it some, make it generally darker than the other areas just because it's not a point of interest, right? What else? Then if you want to step it up, then you start adding some, you probably could push another highlight here. in order to make this material feel different from his cape, you maybe want to introduce like another kind of highlight to the chest armor, right? So you wouldn't use this highlight on the cape because it's supposed to be cloth, but maybe this is more like a latexy type material or something, so you could push that highlight a little bit more on this material to give it some distinction from the cape, so it looks a little shiny, slightly shinier. And then if you want to get fancy, then you start adding glow, right? So it's like you need but glow has to make things brighter, so you got to get these parts correct first. Then you take a nice glowy orange and we start adding some shines and things to parts to make it feel like he's, you know, doing the magic see things. Yeah. Right. Have some fun with it. Make it, you know, you should probably have some glow affecting these parts and whatever. Probably push some of this more. And then even maybe a little, this face is like, it's not actually gold, I'm pretty sure, but it's basically gold. Like they don't tend to draw him like metallic, but he has like gold colored skin and hair. So you could play around with the reflection a little there, and even maybe take a more white light and push the highlight here so he feels a little shinier on this part. You know, or something like that, I guess. Yeah, makes it a little more exciting, right? All these highlight effects, this glow. The way the highlight affects black or any material, but it's based on the glossiness of the material, right? So you're only on black, you're only painting the specular reflection of the glow. And because he's like it surrounds him completely, you might actually end up with some of it like underneath him and stuff, because it's wrapping up around under his legs and whatnot, so it might show up like under here and whatnot. This is a very typical comic book thing to do. Is essentially rim lighting, right? And they like to draw these, especially when you have like blacks and stuff like this. They like to create these sort of effects where it's like helps to silhouette some of these shapes that get lost otherwise. Cool. All right. And the last one, double knife. Hi, Eric. Looking to improve this little space marine. Picture is a bit red, but I don't know why. I think the gun is working well for the moment. The picture is very red. Oh my. Not just a little red. Let's see if we can fix that. Is it supposed to be like purpley? I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to be like that. That feels maybe slightly better. There we go. How's that? Does that seem more right? I guess that seems more right. See you, dude. This is not bad. This is pretty good. But you need some separation, all right? We got to have that separation. Gotta keep it separated. Right. You know the song, or you don't. You're really young, and I'm sad. Yeah, you need some blacks, okay? Things like between the fingers and stuff. Okay, create some line and separation here. Okay, you're not painting the little things like the buttons and stuff, so details and black lining are going to go a long way, because when I look at this knee pad, I'm like, this is good, right? It's not perfect, but it's good. Like some of the, parts could be like slightly better, but generally speaking, this knee pad is excellent. And the rest of it doesn't feel to the same level. Okay? So try and push the dark lining. Like, I have no sense of like what is what on the bolter here. Right? It's all just kind of together. Yeah? So, black lining, and you need to paint a little more detailing on these parts, like even on the face mask, right? Like on the helmet, like take and make some of these parts a different color so they stand out more, right? You need dark lines under here. You got to paint these things, okay? And you're losing a little bit of this tone, right? So you're highlighting so much that this sort of red is getting lost. So you might want to take and come back and glaze some of this back in, all right? Because otherwise you're losing it from over highlighting and overshadowing. Like you're pushing the lights and shadows so much that it washes the color out. So guys, don't be afraid of midtones. Okay, midtones are good. They're what give us color. Because majority of the color exists in the midtone. So bring it back. Makes sense. This highlight is too high based on this one. Okay. If we look here where this highlight is, that actually means that because this shoulder is going backwards, that the highlight would be more forward on it. Cool. Makes sense, I hope. I hope that's helpful. And then give him some markings and all those things, but I guess you still have a little bit more work to do, so. He needs, yeah, he just needs some detail, like some further detail. And being consistent with the level of finish, right?